The government of Iran now is like a ship without a captain. They have lost control. This is no longer just a simple disturbance. It's not like chess where you still think about your next move. It's like a table in a casino where suddenly the real owner has returned. In other words, little by little, the regime is losing control of the very capital itself. Every minute, every corner, every street, something is changing. They are no longer the ones dictating. Millions of voices can now be heard, all shouting together the name they once pushed away. And this isn't limited to one area. If you look at the map from Baluchistan to Khorasan, from Tabriz to Khuzestan, and from Hamadan to Tehran, a country with a population of 92 million suddenly woke up. The wall of fear they once hid behind is gone. They've destroyed it themselves. Now Iran faces massive riots, but the atmosphere is different. No more anxiety or trembling. What you see now on the streets are Iranians full of anger and determination, like a storm that can no longer be stopped. And yes, a civil war is already starting, but before we begin, don't forget to like this video. It means a lot to us content creators. Thank you very much. And now, let's begin. This conflict is not just about anger. This is like a counter-revolution that was long thought to be dead since 1979. But now, like a fire rekindled from the ashes, a spirit is rising that wants to reclaim the throne that was lost decades ago. And as the civil war deepens, you can see that it's no longer just about religion. It's no longer just about politics. It's like a nation forced to emerge from theocratic darkness. Right now, why are millions of people shouting, "Death to the dictator"? The answer is simple. This is not a campaign slogan. It's not a party chant. This is a question of direction. It's a choice between civilization or chaos. It's like a crossroads where it's no longer about politics, but about the future. Because for them, this is not a matter of being pro or anti-government. It's like the cry of a nation that never wants to return to the religious tyranny that was the most brutal in history. They do not wish for the return of autocracy. What they want is the return to their origins, their identity, and their true roots. And even though the regime was too late to stop this protest, they are still trying to show their strength. But the people's decision and outcry have already been made, already marked. There's nothing left to discuss, no more negotiations. Because at this point, the Iranian people themselves have said enough. And the question that now surrounds Iran is not who will win the election, but who will still be standing when the smoke clears. This is no longer just a protest. This is clearly an erasure of the 1979 revolution, as well as the ideology brought by Khomeini and the very foundation of the Islamic Republic. For many Iranians, the past 47 years aren't only history. It's like a long nightmare that they want to end and forget. There's one name now that can't be avoided in conversations, Prince Reza Pahlavi. But in the eyes of the people, he is not just a leader. For them, he is a symbol of a stolen future, modernity, dignity, and respect. His reception in Egypt, as if he were a head of state, is a sign to the world that the voice he represents has legitimacy. But the bravest face of this change is the women. They are the women whom Iran tried to cover up for many decades. They are now burning the cloth that symbolizes oppression and are no longer hiding. As they dance around the fire, it's as if they're shouting that the 47 years that were forced upon them have been broken, and they are no longer alone. The men are no longer standing in front as a shield. They are now side by side in the fight, shoulder to shoulder. It's now about collective resistance, not seeking protection. Everything started with a small spark, like a tiny dot of fire that the regime didn't see coming. And from there, within 7 days, it spread like wildfire throughout Iran. The IRGC, or Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and the Basij militia, which were showcased as the Iron Fist. Now they're like pieces of ice slowly melting as they lose control over cities, police stations, and strategic zones. Verified open-source intelligence reports say over 70 cities were nearly simultaneously lost from government control, and this is now happening beyond Tehran. from Balochistan to Khorasan to Tabriz, Khuzestan, and Hamadan, a nation with a population of 92 million. It's like they all change frequency at the same time. The wall of fear is gone. The pause button is gone. There is footage from May in the Mahabad region, especially around Nurabad in Shiraz and Fars province. These are places that were thought to be solid bases of the regime, traditional strongholds. But now, the streets themselves have become the fortress of the resistance. Police stations are being taken over by civilians one by one, not to make noise, but to remove the symbol of oppression from their communities. There are also reports saying that regime forces threatened them with an impending conflict, but instead of backing down, it was as if their anger burned even more. That scare tactic became fuel to the fire, not a break. They didn't go home. Their numbers grew. They became even more determined. This is asymmetric warfare on the ground. It's not an equal fight in terms of weapons, but it's an equal fight in terms of resolve. Streets that used to be quiet, now they're bastions of the people. Logistics lines were cut. Security routes were disabled. Police stations were seized. A symbol of repression burned with fear. As the world watches this map, it's clear this is more than chaos. This is the reclaiming of identity, the future, and the nation itself. The people have no guns. What they hold are stones. Some only have improvised defensive tools. They're like shields or barriers. But in front of them are armored vehicles, militias fully equipped with gear, and the regime's iron intimidation. The weapons are not equal, but their courage is equal. And surprisingly, within a few hours to a few days, the civilians on the ground are winning. It's not because they're high-tech, but because there are more of them, and their reasons for fighting are stronger. This is called numerical superiority and moral motivation. When you have the numbers and your heart is fully in the fight, even if you're facing steel, you won't back down. What's happening in the Shia region in the western gates of Tehran is not a random clash. It's like a tactical turning point, a moment in history when the balance suddenly shifted. The regime expected their special operations units could wipe out the resistance in just minutes. But the opposite happened. Reports say the resistance held key zones for hours, days, and weeks, taking control from the government and putting them in the people's hands. Scenes involving the memo had already occurred in Loristan province. The regime's paramilitary force was taking off their uniforms, running away or completely disappearing from the field. And in every one of those moments, it was as if the myth of the government's invincibility was being shattered. When those who once intimidated you start to flee, you realize fear no longer controls you. In the port city of Bushehr, there is footage of the Islamic Republic's flag being taken down and replaced. The lion and sun flag of Shera takes its place. And remember, a flag is not just a piece of cloth. It is the strongest symbol of loyalty and authority in a country. When people remove the government's flag themselves, it's more than a protest. It's an act of reclaiming sovereignty. And the message is even heavier when it's a soldier, still in uniform, holding the flag of the monarchy, not of the regime. It means that loyalty in the lower ranks of the army has already fractured. For them, it's no longer Khamenei they follow, but the roots of the country that were long thought to have been buried by the 1979 revolution. When a soldier, while still wearing the uniform, carries the flag of the monarchy he wants to restore instead of the flag of the government he is supposed to defend. For the regime, that's game over, because a government stands on two pillars, economy and security. But in Iran now, according to field reality, both have collapsed. And when security falls along with the economy, what you have is no longer a government. It's just a ghost of authority. And while government buildings are burning and provincial offices are being occupied, the regime's officials are no longer looking for a plan to win. They're now looking for a way out. The regime's strongest weapon before, which was fear, has now switched sides. Civilians once feared the Revolutionary Guard's footsteps, but now in Iran, the roles are reversed. The guards are the ones avoided and forced to hide. And according to field reports, many security forces disguised as civilians are running away and even leaving their vehicles behind. When former intimidators become fearful, it's clear someone new controls the game. These changes extend beyond the streets. In the economy, the impact is even worse. The Tehran Stock Exchange has crashed. The Iranian currency, the rial, has plummeted. According to records, this is the lowest value in the country's entire history. Shopkeepers have closed their stores one by one, not because it's nighttime, but because they no longer trust the government. Even the bazaar, the merchant class with great influence in Iran, has also turned its back. Remember, in Iran, when the bazaar speaks, it carries weight. In 1979, they helped bring him down. But in 2026, they are also the ones helping to bring down Khamenei. And there are universal rules in this kind of system. When the money dries up, paid enforcers lose their loyalty. This is no secret. It's a common pattern in dictatorships worldwide. For years, Iran's oil revenues did not go to the people. According to records, they were passed on to the Houthis in Yemen and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Due to sanctions and global pressure, the funds have dried up. And when the police are hungry and see no future, they have no motivation to shoot their own countrymen. He will no longer fight for a leader who can't even fight for his plate on the table. So the retreats we see in the field are not a sign of the nation's weakness. This is the regime's weakness they try to hide on television. And speaking of television, Khamenei himself appeared on state television and shouted, "We will not back down in the face of the enemy. We will bring them to their knees." But honestly, that wasn't a shout of strength. That was the cry of a dictator who has been cornered. When a leader starts shouting like an angry drum on the radio, it usually means he no longer has control on the ground. And at this point, there's one thing he can't accept or refuses to understand. The nation of 92 million was not afraid of him. The government's flag has been lowered. The economy is closed. And the loyalty of the soldiers and police is also fractured. For many Iranians, this is no longer a fight about politics or religion. This is about reclaiming a future that was stolen and erasing decades they called a nightmare. And while the world examines the bigger picture, it's not hard to see the ending. The regime is already in a strategic checkmate. This is no longer speculation. This is the direction now. It's no longer a question of whether the palace will fall. The only question left is when. The regime that Khamenei calls the enemy is no longer outside the country. They're already at the very gates of his palace, and the irony is even greater. The Iranians are asking for help from the countries he declared as demons. On the streets and on social media, there are scenes rarely seen in history. There are groups directly appealing to Israel, saying, "Please stop this regime, help us." When the citizens, the former enemies of the government, now see them as saviors, it means the leader has lost legitimacy. Even the fear that he once ruled with is gone. And what they're saying isn't just a slogan. Their cries carry weight. Neither Gaza nor Lebanon. My life for Iran. The message is they will no longer fight for the regime's foreign agenda. What they're fighting for now is their own freedom. In 2025, President Donald Trump returned. And according to open source intelligence, the United States reinstated its maximum pressure policy on Iran. As a result, the government's lifeline was cut off in terms of revenue and sanctions relief, the so-called axis of resistance. It's just a fairy tale now. The IRGC can't be paid anymore. The Houthis can no longer launch missiles. Hezbollah can no longer give orders if the mothership in Tehran collapses. And the pattern is real. When the money is gone, mercenaries' loyalty vanishes. No surprise anymore. This is the universal rule of dictatorship. In the United Kingdom Member of Parliament, Adnan Hussein warned that intervening in Iran would trigger a refugee crisis. But if you look at reality, what Iran is shaping now is not a refugee wave, but reverse migration. If oppression disappears, millions will return, not leave. And while government buildings, police stations, and provincial offices are burning, this is no longer just temporary chaos. This is now the geopolitical earthquake of the era. That map is not a protest route. That is a blueprint for the collapse of control lines, logistics, economy, security, and propaganda. and bravest of all women. The women who were forced to be covered for 4 decades, they themselves are burning the cloth that symbolizes 47 years of imposition. They no longer need a protector in front. They now stand side by side with men in the same line. In Bushehr, footage shows the Islamic Republic's flag taken down and replaced with Shera's lion and sun flag. A flag is not just a piece of cloth. It is the strongest symbol of loyalty. When soldiers in uniform hold the monarchy's flag, it's more than insubordination. It's a shift in loyalty among the army's lower ranks. Those 47 years they called a nightmare are already over in people's minds. While loyalty shifts among the public and military, a deeper, less visible battle rages. The information war in and outside Iran, while the people are burning the regime's symbols on the ground. In the digital space, a new battlefield is emerging. This isn't a gunfight or riot, but a clash of narratives. For decades, the Islamic Republic has controlled media, television, radio, newspapers, and mosque messaging. In the modern era, they've lost their narrative monopoly due to the internet, VPNs, satellite signals, and citizen journalism. This is where the domino effect began. The Iranian diaspora in Europe, North America, the Middle East, and Asia are no longer just spectators. They are digital reinforcements. Millions of Iranians abroad have skills in tech, finance, media, and geopolitics. They are the ones doing open source intelligence leaking footage, countering propaganda, and distributing raw field updates on X, Telegram, Instagram, and YouTube. They're like an invisible battalion that doesn't need to cross the border to help in the fight. Because of them, the perception of ground reality has changed. When videos of riots in Isfahan, Mahabad, Shiraz, or Lorestan spread faster than the state television broadcast, that's when the collapse of narrative control begins. The regime can no longer control the algorithm. The truth is now in the hands of the uploader, not the censor. And the bravest generals of this new narrative, the youth and women, they are the face of virality. Young Iranians are accustomed to smartphones, reels, live streams, captions, memes, remixes, and digital calls to action. While the older generation has anger, the younger generation has anger and bandwidth. They are the ones spreading the message to the whole world. It's like a digital wildfire that's even faster than a fire at a police station. In this kind of information war, you don't need bullets to win. You only need a cell phone, internet, timing, audience, and a story. And Iran has proven this. It's no longer propaganda that shapes the future, but content. And as the narrative collapse deepens, there's a parallel global response. Other countries are no longer neutral to the changes. Even if they didn't directly get involved, they gave legitimacy to opposition voices in the process. For example, the state-level reception for Prince Reza Pahlavi in Egypt, media coverage in Europe, and open statements from policymakers in Washington. All of these visually prove a shift in global recognition. Even if this isn't an alliance declaration, optics are powerful, especially with millions watching. This is where the bigger strategic consequence arises. Once the narrative fades, so does fear and obedience. When obedience and control disappear, the government collapses. This is the cycle of collapse. Now let's talk about the psychological shift within the IRGC. The Revolutionary Guards are not just military. They are the brand, identity, and backbone of the regime. But as the conflict drags on, a critical truth emerges. Not all IRGC soldiers are ideologues. Many of them are just following orders and getting paid, like Filipino virtual assistant style. When the oil revenue runs out, they can no longer deliver loyalty. When loyalty moves to the lower ranks, top orders lose their power. This is more than desertion, it's an identity crisis. When a soldier is no longer sure who he is loyal to, that's when the chain of command starts to fracture. When an officer no longer wants to flag the loot, when the unit no longer follows the deployment order, when the uniform is removed and thrown away, when the flag is replaced by the soldier himself. That's when you'll see that the narrative they stood for is already dead. And it's not like this was planned by the generals either. This is a grassroots revolution within the military ranks themselves. A shift in loyalty that wasn't ordered but was felt. Because when the foundation of obedience is fear, and the foundation of fear is narrative, and the narrative is destroyed by people on the internet and in the streets, the regime loses its psychological armor. And as security and narrative control imploded, economic paralysis followed as well. We mentioned that the Tehran Stock Exchange crashed, but the bigger consequence of this is that even the merchant economy froze, the bazaar class, not just the shopkeepers. They are the economic heartbeat of Iran. When they themselves close their shutters, not the protesters, that's a gesture. That's an economic vote of no confidence. And in Iran, when the bazaar speaks, that's the law of the streets. In 1979, they were the ones who helped bring him down. But now, he's not the one they're trying to bring down. The regime is the target. Because the future they thought 1979 brought, that wasn't the future. That was the monarchy they removed earlier, not a dynasty. That was their future. The ideology they chose wasn't honor, but delusion. The republic they built wasn't liberation. That was a prison. This fall isn't a protest, it's a national verdict. And as the identity shift returns, there's a spiritual undertone that can't be ignored. For many Iranians, their fight is no longer about religion, but about human dignity, freedom, and the future. When religion is used as a leash of power, obedience, that's no longer faith, that's oppression. When ideology is used as a moral justification for the military, that's no longer righteousness. That's psychological warfare. When foreign policy is used as a leader's pride project, that's no longer nationalism. That's misplaced loyalty. So now, the chance that neither Gaza nor Lebanon may live for Iran is not just a rejection of foreign policy. That's a reclamation of nationalism. The burning of the cloth, that's a reclamation of identity. The lowering of the flag, that's a reclamation of sovereignty. The soldier's loyalty shift is a restoration of the nation's chain of command. And now, the world will no longer see Iran as an exporter of conflict, but as a nation rebuilding itself. And on a bigger strategic scale, we can see three phases now. Phase 1, rejection. Erasing the 1979 ideology, narrative control, and foreign access policy. Phase 2, reclamation. Restoring identity, flag, loyalty, and legitimacy online and in public. Phase 3, rebirth. The rise of Iran not as a source of refugees, but as an economic and cultural power. And this is the point we haven't highlighted yet. The fall of the regime. It's not just an ending, that's just the beginning of the strategic realignment of the entire region. When the capital falls, it's not only Iran that changes. Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, the Gulf states, even the United States, Israel-Middle East equation will change. When the mothership goes down, the proxy ideology's lifeboats go down too. So the end of this conflict is not just the fall of a government, it's a reset of Middle East geopolitics.